Hi, and welcome to Think and Grow Rich. This is an introductory workshop. My name is Joel Fotinos, and I'm delighted to be with you as we go through the Think and Grow Rich journey. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the process and about the book and about my experience with Think and Grow Rich and what you can expect. So let's just get right to it. You're here because of Think and Grow Rich, and maybe this is something that you've read before, you've read the book, or maybe it's just something you've heard about and wondered what it is, or maybe this is your very first exposure to it whatsoever. But I'll tell you this, Think and Grow Rich is based on this book by Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. And the book itself contains what he calls 13 steps to riches. And by riches, he doesn't mean just monetary riches, of course. He means anything that makes us feel rich and wonderful in life. But he has 13 steps. And so what we're going to do in this workshop is we're going to cover each of the 13 steps. Some of the steps have more information, some fewer, and some of the steps are, going to contain a lot of information for you, give you a lot of tools so that you can take this material and really make it your own. Let me tell you a little bit about the author and about the book. When Napoleon Hill was a very young man and he was a journalist, he was looking for something to do, and he ended up having an interview with the great steel magnate and philanthropist Andrew Carnegie. At that point, they had such a good conversation that Andrew Carnegie gave him a charge, gave him an assignment. And he said, I'm going to give you an assignment. I want you to go and interview the 500 most wealthy, self-made wealthy people in the country. Now, this was written in the United States, so they concentrated on people in the United States. And he said, I want you to go and interview them and find out if there are commonalities, if there's a common philosophy or common steps that these 500 wealthy people did in order to attain their wealth. And Napoleon Hill accepted this assignment, and Andrew Carnegie said, I will open the doors to these people so that you are able to interview them and that you can see what is the commonalities, what are the commonalities. Napoleon Hill said yes. He spent the next 20 years of his life interviewing these wealthy, self-made wealthy people. And what he found out is there is indeed common ideas and actions that these people took to attain their great and vast wealth and power. And that became a series of the 13 steps that are in Think and Grow Rich. Napoleon Hill actually first wrote about these experiences in a big, long, thick book called The Law of Success. And that's a wonderful book as well. But then he basically took the most essential parts of that book into a little book called Think and Grow Rich, and that's the book that he's known for. The book itself was published in 1937 originally and has gone on to sell tens of millions of copies all around the world. It's not just published in the United States. It's published in almost every country in the world and has been successful there. And I think that's because the principles in the book are not just for people in the United States. They're universal principles that really can be applied anywhere. Even if some of the examples seem very centered here, they can be applied anywhere. It's still, after all of these years, since 1937, it's still the #1 personal finance motivation book year after year after year. Now, I do want to say, if you decide to read the book along with us, and I'll talk more about that later, if you do decide to read the book with us, you will notice that since it was written in the 1930s, some of the language is a little of its time, and you'll read through it and you'll find some words that may have been more common in the 1930s than they are now. And you'll also notice that unlike now, when people are a little more attuned to and sensitive to using gender-neutral terms, he tends to use he and him, and most of the examples are with men. I hope as you read through it that you're able to translate that into more of our times and our experiences. Again, some of the examples he uses are of his time, but I want you to take that material and really translate it into not just what he said, which is of its time, but what does it say to us now? How do I relate to this material now? But the book is everywhere present and it's used everywhere. And now I've been teaching Think and Grow Rich for over 20 years, 20 plus years, and I've taught it literally to thousands and thousands of people all across the country and many, many states and many different types of people, from business organizations to other types of organizations to spiritual groups and everything in between. And what I found is a lot of people come to this material because they are in a place where they are scared about something or they want something. They're either scared, so they're running away from something, or they want something and they're being pulled by that vision. It doesn't matter how you came to this material, why you signed up for this course, and why it interests you. What matters is that you take the material and you read through it. Now, as I began reading the book and began working with other people with it, I became very interested in one question, and the question was this. This book, which has been read by tens of millions of people and has helped millions of people find riches and wealth of all kinds in their life, why does it work for some people and not for others? The principles are the same, and he says they will work for anybody, anywhere, so why does it only work for some and not for others? And I think over the years what I've come up is two main reasons. I mean, I'm sure there's lots of reasons, but there are two things that I've noticed that really seem to be true. First, a lot of people come to the book expecting magic, not a program or philosophy that will help them. So what I mean by that is they think with a title like Think and Grow Rich that it's going to be this simple little formula that if I do A plus B, then automatically I get C. And as they begin reading it and they begin reading what Napoleon Hill actually writes, and that this is not just a get-rich-quick scheme, but it really is a philosophy that becomes a way of life, I think they get disappointed because it's not a simple little formula, and they drop out, which is a shame because this material is meant to enhance life, not just make you rich quick. In fact, I think what's interesting is that this is a book that really helps you to become greater than you thought you were even now. And the second reason I think that it doesn't work for all people is because there's a lot of resistance to change in some people. People will come to the material and they will think to themselves, what I want is I want what I want, but I don't want to change what I already have. I want it in addition to what I already have. So I want more money to pay off my debt, but I don't want to change anything about my life as it is. And that resistance to change what is stops them from experiencing more. Think and Grow Rich requires us to change. One of the things that I've noticed, there's a secret about Think and Grow Rich that I've discovered over time, and that is if you look at the title, Think and Grow Rich, most people focus on the word rich. Some people focus on the word think. But this book really is about the word grow. This is really a book about growing, growth, and becoming more than you thought you were. Because one of the ideas in this book is in order to have more, we must first become more. And that's what you're going to experience, I hope, by going through this book. That this is not a get-rich-quick scheme. This is not something that is going to be a little bit of a formula. This is really a book that encourages you to be the greatest, biggest, most wonderful, juiciest you that life created you for. If it's true, as he says, that we are each born with purpose and passion, this is a book that encourages you to figure out what that purpose and passion is for you. And that leads me to something else that I discovered. This is what I think is really the great secret about Think and Grow Rich. I've read through the book, I don't even know how many times, countless times over the years. And every time I read it, I feel like I learn something different. In fact, I've made a habit of every time I reread the book, I get a new copy of the book so that I can underline it in way for the things that inspire me at the moment, and I can write things in the margin of where I am now. And I've gone back and I've looked at some of the early editions of Think and Grow Rich that I purchased and underlined, and then I compare them to the current edition and how different it is, what has struck me then and what has struck me now. But at one point in one of the readings of Think and Grow Rich, I had one of those aha moments, one of those revelatory moments when I realized something. I finished the book and I closed it, and something occurred to me. What occurred to me is that most of the stories that he tells in this book, and he tells many stories of people who become successful using this philosophy, most of the stories are not about people who make making money their number one goal. It's about making their passion, whatever it is that they are excited about in life, their number one goal. I found that fascinating, that the stories, the examples he uses, are people who want to have more in life. They have a dream, they have a passion, they have an idea, and they go forward. But the money part enhances, it informs, and it makes possible their passions, their dreams to come true. So when he has us set a goal, you can set any goal that you want, including a financial goal, but when you infuse the financial goal with what you want to do with that money, how you're going to use it to fulfill your dreams, your purpose, then it becomes infused. It's not just money, then it becomes a way for you to live the life that you were meant to live. You know, it's funny, over the years, I've taught it to all sorts of different kinds of groups. And I remember one time I was attending a church, and the minister, I think, saw that I was in the audience and knew that I was somebody that, in addition to all the things I do in my life, one of the things I do is teach Think and Grow Rich. And he began his church service by standing up, and he looked very spiritual. He was wearing robes and beads, and he looked very, very spiritual. He was barefoot. He stood up and he said, "Welcome to this particular church, and I just want you to know that this is a church that teaches love. We don't teach any of the meaningless stuff like that Think and Grow Rich crap. We teach love." I was dumbfounded. First of all, it didn't sound very loving, what he had just said. But more importantly, he knew I was in the audience, and I thought to myself, why does he have to draw a distinction between the two? Why do spiritual values have to be different than the values that are in Think and Grow Rich? It occurred to me that he probably hadn't even read the book and had made a judgment on it, thinking it was just a book that served our ego needs, that was only about just attaining more money. And the title does kind of suggest that, but when you read it, it's so much more. Later, I was talking to somebody in that church, and they said that the church was in some financial difficulties and that they hadn't been able to pay that minister for quite a few weeks, and he was having to move because he couldn't afford the place he was in, and on and on. And I thought how sad it was that here he was trying to make a distinction between what's spiritual and what's bad, you know, the physical stuff, and yet he couldn't even pay his own rent. I think we can bring it all together. Think and Grow Rich can become part of the most amazing spiritual or emotional or psychological journey. It can become an adventure for you. It has been for me. And I also think that it's really great to know that the principles that can bring us more money are the very same principles that can bring us whatever it is we desire. You don't have to set a monetary goal using Think and Grow Rich. You can set a goal for your business. You can set a creative goal, like I want to write a book in a certain amount of time, or paint, or learn how to play the piano, or whatever it is. You can even set spiritual goals, maybe spiritual qualities that you want to inhabit more of. You can set health goals. It doesn't matter. These principles can be used for everything. We can use them for money, and we will use that example throughout the workshop, but I want you to know as you go through this, you can use it in any way you want. People have used these principles in so many different ways that it's inspiring to know that you now have the tools available to you to use them in whatever ways you want to do it. So In conclusion, in this introduction, I just want you to know how excited I am for you, that you are about to step into this great philosophy called Think and Grow Rich, which really has changed the lives of millions of people, but more importantly to me, it changed my life. And I don't mean that selfishly. I mean, I can stand up here and talk about it, not because I just read the book and understand it, but because I've used it and I am a floor sample of the principles that he teaches. I think it's a book that will bless you, that it will help you, and again, use it. Don't expect magic, but take the principles, and now, knowing the principles that you're going to learn in this process, it's now up to you. We can teach all the principles that there are, but it's now up to you to use the principles in the way that works for you to manifest your desires. I'm very excited for you for this adventure called Think and Grow Rich, and I can't wait to hear more about your journey in the forums that we have, and I'm excited to see how Think and Grow Rich works in your life.